This jungle is a living nightmare, filled with creatures that shouldn't exist, tribes that never make peace, and forces that defy explanation. And yet some people survived the impossible. These are their terrifying stories. Number 10. The man who was stalked for days by something he couldn't see. Deep in the Amazon rainforest, biologist Nathan Crouch was on a routine research trip until he realized he was not alone. For 3 days straight, he heard it. Leaves rustling, branches snapping, heavy breathing. But whenever he turned around, nothing. At first, he thought it was a jaguar. Then he found footprints. But they weren't feline. They were human. Only the toes were too long. The feet were too wide. One night, as he sat by his campfire, he felt it. A cold breath on the back of his neck. Spinning around, he saw 2 glowing eyes peering from the darkness. He grabbed his flashlight. The moment he turned it on, everything went silent. And then in the distance, a low, guttural laugh. By morning, he was running for his life. No one knows what followed him. Some say it was an undiscovered predator. Others whisper about the Curupira, a mythical jungle demon that lures travelers to their doom. Nathan never went back. Would you? But if you think that's terrifying, wait until you hear about the explorer who woke up buried alive. Number 9. Trapped beneath the jungle, with no one to hear his screams. In 2018, a group of archaeologists were exploring an unmapped cave system in the Amazon. Everything was fine, until one of them vanished. His name was Daniel Munoz. One moment he was walking through the tunnels. The next, the ground collapsed beneath him. He fell 30 feet down, into a hole so narrow he couldn't even move. The others tried to reach him, but the walls were too unstable. With every attempt, more rocks fell. And then from below, they heard his shaking voice. "Something is down here with me." At first, they thought he was delirious, until he started screaming. Hours passed. Then, silence. Rescue teams took 3 days to reach him. When they finally pulled him out, his arms were covered in deep scratches. His face was frozen in terror. He never spoke about what happened in that pit. But his rescuers? They swore the claw marks didn't match any known animal. And now, let's talk about a creature so deadly, it hunts in complete silence. Number 8. The night the jungle went silent, and something started hunting. In 2005, 2 brothers, Felipe and Ricardo, were camping near a river deep in the Amazon. That night, as they cooked their food, the jungle fell deathly silent. Not a single insect. Not a single bird. Felipe whispered, "Something's coming." Then, the smell hit them. Rotten meat and wet fur. Before they could react, something massive moved between the trees. Ricardo grabbed a flashlight. And what they saw? A shape. Too big for a jaguar. Too fast for a human. Then, it charged. They ran for their lives, crashing through the jungle. Ricardo tripped. It was right behind him. Felipe turned to help, but it was gone. Not a sound. No footprints. Just the smell. The locals later told them they were lucky, because some predators don't just kill, they make you disappear. Still breathing? Good, because this next survivor was attacked by something that shouldn't exist. Number 7. Dragged into the river by a monster that should be extinct. In 2016, a fisherman named Andres Espinoza set up camp near the Rio Negro. He was an expert, knew the jungle, knew the risks. But what he saw that night defied science. As he slept, he woke to a strange noise, a deep, rhythmic sound, almost like breathing. Then, his entire tent was yanked into the river. Something massive had pulled him in. He thrashed, gasping for air when he saw it. Dark green scales, a jaw larger than his own body. It was a megalodon-sized caiman, a species thought to be extinct for thousands of years. Desperate, he stabbed its eye with a fishing knife. It let go for just a second. He swam for his life, crawling onto shore, expecting it to lunge. But when he turned back, it was gone. No ripples. no movement. Locals believe the giant black caiman of the Amazon never truly went extinct, and Andres, he'll never fish alone again. But what if I told you that some monsters wear human faces? Number 6. The tribe that shouldn't have existed, but did. In 2012, American explorer David Marquez and his team were deep in the Peruvian Amazon, searching for an uncontacted tribe. They found something else. One night, their camp was surrounded. At first, they thought it was animals. Then they heard whispers and drums. Peering into the darkness, they saw figures, covered in white paint, their eyes reflecting the firelight. Then, the chanting started. They weren't just being watched. They were being hunted. One of the guides whispered in terror, "They are not from here." Then, suddenly, silence. By morning, their entire camp had been ransacked. Their cameras, gone. Their food, gone. But the most terrifying part? The footprints led nowhere. There were no trails, no signs of them leaving, as if they had just vanished. Locals later told them that centuries ago there was a tribe known as the Pale Ones. But they had been wiped out long ago. Or had they? And if you think these stories were terrifying, just wait. Because the next 5 encounters are even worse. Hit like and subscribe if you dare. Because what's coming next will haunt you forever. Number 5. The woman who woke up with a parasite crawling inside her skull. In 2019, a Brazilian doctor named Helena Vasquez took a solo trip to the Amazon, hoping for some peace. But what she got was pure horror. One night, after a long trek, she collapsed into her tent and felt something buzzing near her ear. She brushed it away. No big deal. But the next morning, she had a searing headache. Over the next few days, it got worse. Dizziness, nausea, sharp pain behind her eye. Then, she heard it. A faint, wet scratching sound, coming from inside her head. Panicked, she rushed to a nearby medical station. The doctors examined her and turned pale. Something was moving inside her skull. They made a small incision, and then out crawled a live botfly larva, nearly 3 inches long. It had been eating her from the inside for days. Had she waited any longer, it would have burrowed into her brain. She survived, but she still hears that scratching in her nightmares. And speaking of creatures that shouldn't be inside the human body, number 4, the man who had a serpent living inside him. In 2021, a British traveler named Jack Thompson spent 2 months hiking through the Amazon. Everything was fine, until his stomach began to swell. At first, he blamed the food. Then the pain began. Sharp, twisting, as if something was writhing inside him. At a remote clinic, doctors took an ultrasound, and what they saw made them gasp. A live, moving shape inside his intestines. It was a parasitic worm, nearly 3 feet long, and it was still growing. His only option, a dangerous surgery deep in the jungle. But when the doctors cut open his stomach, the worm slithered out on its own. It had been living off him for weeks. Jack survived, but he still feels phantom movements in his gut, like it's still there. And now, let's talk about a creature that doesn't just kill, it watches. Number 3, the shadow that followed a photographer for miles. In 2014, wildlife photographer Luis Morales was deep in the jungle, documenting rare birds. One evening, he set up his camera and noticed something strange, a tall, dark figure, standing among the trees. At first, he assumed it was a shadow, until it moved. Every time he adjusted his camera, it was closer. No sound, no footprints, just watching. Luis turned his camera to night vision, and what he saw shouldn't have been real. It was humanoid, but twisted. Too tall, too thin, no eyes. Then it turned its head, all the way around. Terrified, Luis ran. His footage? Never seen again. But locals knew exactly what he saw. El Silbón, a spirit that stalks the jungle at night, hunting those who stray too far. And speaking of things that hunt in the dark, number 2, the explorer who spent 11 days lost in a place that shouldn't exist. In 2007, an experienced guide named Marco Fuentes led a group into a remote part of the jungle. One morning, he vanished. The team searched for hours. Then, days. No trace. On day 11, he stumbled back into camp, barefoot, covered in deep scratches. And the worst part? He didn't remember a thing. The last thing he recalled was seeing an unfamiliar tree with strange carvings. Then, blackness. Locals believe he wandered into a cursed place, one that doesn't let people leave. Marco never led another expedition. And now, it's time for the #1 most terrifying Amazonian survival story. This one will ruin your sleep forever. Number 1. The woman who escaped a tribe that wasn't human. In 2013, a scientist named Rachel Carter was on a research trip deep in the jungle. One day, she didn't return to camp. A search party combed the forest for 3 weeks. Then, she walked back into civilization. Her clothes, torn to shreds. Her body, covered in strange symbols, carved into her skin. But the worst part? She was smiling. She claimed she had been taken by a hidden tribe, one that spoke in whispers, one that never blinked. They fed her, marked her, prepared her. For what? She wouldn't say. Then, months later, she disappeared again. This time, for good. No one knows if she left willingly, or if they came back for her. And there you have it. The scariest encounters people barely survived in the Amazon. But remember, some who vanish in the jungle never return. So before you scroll away, ask yourself, what if something is watching you right now? If you made it to the end, comment below, I survived the Amazon. And don't forget, subscribe. Because trust me, what's coming next is even worse.